Hey everyone, I wanted to bring you outside for a bit of story time, and this is a little embarrassing for me because I got conned by an employee. If you are someone who is ramping up your small business, that you can spot some of these red flags that I missed and be able to act more quickly than I did. I have been a supervisor in the past to some not so good hires, and it was different. I didn't feel so culpable. But this time around, with the bad hiring decisions that I've made running my small business, it has been quite the learning experience because I have felt like it's all on me. Hi, my name is Laura Forsick. I am the executive director of boutique space consulting firm Astralytical, helping businesses, government entities, and nonprofits to grow in space. Just to give a little bit of background, when I started Astralytical, it was just me for a few years. I didn't hire my first intern until about 3 years into my company. And then it wasn't until a few years ago that I really started to hire outsiders to help me. And as I learned from these mistakes, from these bad hires, it also helps me to be a better manager to the good employees I have and to appreciate my good employees and to nurture them and guide them along the way so that they grow with the business. I hired the wrong people to do the type of job I wanted them to do. And this is on me. I thought by hiring people with space industry experience that I could train them in things they were deficient in. Specifically in this case, I'm talking about sales. So back a few years ago, I actually tried to hire a sales team and completely failed, because I hired entirely people who were coming from the space sector who had no real sales experience, which is fine if I could have trained them, but I myself am a scientist. You need to hire someone who has more of an expertise than you have in that area. It doesn't help to hire the wrong people to do the wrong job. I did not have standard operating procedures, SOPs, or any kind of training or onboarding materials for my new employees. And this was more of a problem a few years ago than it is today because I've learned this lesson. But the main problem was that I laid out what I wanted them to do. So I gave them the vision. And I myself work really well with just giving me the vision and setting me loose, but you still need to train them. You still need to give them some kind of guidance. Even someone who's very independent needs some kind of direction to go in and a good understanding of how a company operates, what the expectations are, what the deadlines are, what the procedures are. Some people do need more hand-holding than others. So some people do need much more guidance, much more of these standard operating procedures, and much more walkthrough with you to understand what's expected of them. As a result, some of the people that I've hired in the past felt lost and they didn't really know what to do. So they floundered and they didn't produce results. They felt discouraged and they left. So one of the things that I recommend is creating this with your employees. You set out the first draft maybe and have them iterate to figure out what works and what doesn't. Another thing I have failed to do consistently is have clear expectations about reporting to me, whether that's having regular phone calls or sending regular updates. I needed to be much clearer and hold my employees responsible for getting back to me, telling me how things are going, letting me know of problems, letting me know of help that they need, or letting me know of successes and where I need to take over with certain things. And so what I recommend is either setting an exact day, say close of business Friday. I need you to have a report sent to me every Friday, or perhaps a range. Sometime in the middle of the week, I am requiring you to send me some updates so that I know that by the end of the week, you are on track and ready for Monday. Or perhaps it's a phone call starting out the week. Whatever works for you and your business, making sure that you keep them accountable to give yourself the peace of mind that your employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. This one is really hard. I'm not going to lie. I'm not good at this at all, which is discerning between having compassion for an employee and them making excuses. I'm the kind of person who gives everybody the benefit of the doubt. I always try to see people in a positive light. And unfortunately, there are some people who will take advantage of you if you are like me. So even if someone is having a very difficult time in life, they've got personal circumstances, they've got, certain things that are going on, there might be a time and place for having compassion and giving them space and time to take care of what they need to take care of. And personal life, I truly believe, comes before work life, and that's okay. But you also need to discern between people who are taking advantage of a sob story or a difficult situation to make excuses for underperforming. Unfortunately, the employee who conned me continually tried to use a difficult circumstance in his life to make excuses for why he wasn't performing or wasn't making the meetings or wasn't giving me updates, etc., etc. This is not the same thing as providing accommodations for people with disabilities or people who really need different ways of working. So for example, I will try to communicate with people in the way that they best communicate, as long as they're getting their work done. This is another area where I am not good at this at all, which is letting go of people, whether that's in my personal life, a relationship or a friendship, or letting go of people in a business context, that is firing someone. I spent entirely too long with people, not just this most recent example, but even previous hires who were not working out and had not been communicating with me. It's hard for me to have that line in the sand and say, okay, that's it. Instead, I tend to say a little bit longer. I'll give them a little bit longer, and that's not good for anybody. That takes away money from my company that could be spent hiring somebody else. That takes away my energy and time and thought processes. The time that you take up handling bad employees also takes away from the time you have working with good employees and working with your customers and clients. So making sure that you're spending your resources, that is time, money, energy, on the right types of things for your business to help it grow. As promised, here's the story of how I got conned by an employee, and it was really my fault because I saw the red flags really early on. In fact, before I even hired this person, I had some red flags about their ability to do the job that I hired them for, but I ignored those red flags. I gave them a chance. This person continuously showed me that the red flags were valid. They continuously failed to meet expectations. We had weekly tag up meetings that we had set up, and he missed more than half of them. He always had some kind of excuse how he couldn't make that time. He'd call me later, or he couldn't make that day. He'd talk to me later in the week, and chances were I almost always knew that he was never going to actually reschedule the meeting with me, but I let that slide, and that was my fault. I should not have let that slide. My goal was to connect with each of my employees on a weekly basis, one-on-one, even if it was for 5 minutes. And I failed in doing so. I let him miss those opportunities to catch me up on what he was doing. But that was the big problem, was that I don't believe he was actually doing much work at all. He also refused to send me updates through email, any kind of progress reports, any kind of evidence that he was actually doing the job that I had hired him to do repeatedly over the course of 4 months. After I let this employee go, I obtained evidence that proved that he was actually not working. He probably worked less than 10% of the time that he was actually supposed to be working. And of course, he got 0 results from 4 months of work. It was my fault for not addressing it sooner. It was my fault for letting him get away with not bringing me progress reports. And it was my fault for not firing him more quickly. It was literally the definition of a con, where he was so confident during the occasional meetings that we had that he was able to convince me every time that he could do the job, that he was doing the job, that the job was just a bit harder and it was just taking a little bit longer, but he was doing it and he could do it. His over-the-top confidence is what convinced me to keep him on for longer than I should have. If you are in this situation, know that you are not alone. Know that other people are taken, other people make bad hires. I'm still fairly new in this company where that only cost me a few $1,000s. The amusing thing about this employee is that he recently got hired on by a sort of competitor company of mine, although not really, because they are much larger, much more established. I really respect this company, and they hired him on, which actually makes me feel better, because it makes me feel like I'm not the only one who makes bad hiring decisions, that this much more larger, well-established, experienced company also can make a bad hire. So know that you are not alone in making bad hiring decisions. If you are a space-related business who is hoping to hire good people, I can hook you up with some really good space-specific recruiters that I work with. And if you are a business who is looking to grow in space, to find your niche, to find your market, to find where you belong, or just get a handle on the space sector, that's exactly what my company Astrolytical does. So please reach out if we can help you to grow your business in space.